Hey, what's up you professional Call of Duty elites? So, after a long week of work, I'm glad to be here with this next video for you, which is going to be all about my honest opinion on the new Dragon's Breath rounds on the R9 shotgun. And of course, if you do end up enjoying this video, I'd massively appreciate a like and subscribe. So with that said, let's jump right into it. And before the Dragon Breath rounds were added to the R9 shotgun, it was pretty much eclipsed by the Origin 12 for most of Warzone, and I just remember all the way back in the early days of Warzone when the meta hadn't really been figured out yet, a lot of popular YouTubers were saying that the R9 shotgun was the best in the game because of its super fast timed kill potential, which on paper makes sense, but in reality it was very difficult to pull that off because the range on the default R9, without the Dragon's Breath rounds of course, was just not very good at all, so most people just largely ignored the advice that it was a very good shotgun and ended up using the Origin 12 instead, just because of how much easier it was to use and spam your shots. So the R9 was largely forgotten pretty much, and not many people were using it up until now when the new Dragon's Breath rounds were added. And the thing that makes the Dragon's Breath rounds so good on the R9 is because when you equip it together with the sentry barrel, the choke, and the 5mm laser, the two-shot kill range on the R9 shotgun now becomes roughly 8.5 meters, and that's just a massive improvement to what it was before, because previously you'd have to be within under 4 meters to get that two-shot kill range. And if we compare this to a similar setup on the Origin 12 shotgun, with the impaler barrel, the choke, and also the 5mm laser, the two-shot kill range on that setup is roughly 4.5 meters, which is pretty good, but as you can see, it's not as good as that 8.5 meters now with the R9 shotgun. So now, the R9 shotgun is just much more usable and actually reliable in being able to compete with the Origin 12, and within those 8.5 meters, if you're accurate, you can pretty consistently land those all-important two-shot kills if most of your pellets hit. Which, if you can do that, it gives you the best time to kill in the game of around 200 milliseconds, and this is of course not counting one-hit kill weapons like the crossbow or sniper headshots. And if we compare this to the Origin 12, which can also kill in 2 hits, the 2-hit kill time on the Origin 12 is around 223 milliseconds. So, I wouldn't say the R9 is massively better in that regard, but the thing that makes the R9 really stand out now is the fact that it has that extra range boost over the Origin 12 with the Dragon Breath rounds, which makes that two-shot kill range up to 8.5 meters compared to the Origin 12 being able to kill in 2 shots, but within 4.5 meters. So, with all that being said, what do I think of this new R9 shotgun? Do I think it's better than the Origin 12 now? Do I think it's overpowered, as some people are saying? And I'm gonna get to that now. So, to answer that first part, whether I think it's better than the Origin 12, I have to say I think it's pretty balanced now with the Origin 12, because although on paper the Dragon's Breath R9 seems like the better option, that's still only if you can get a 2-hit kill scenario, but in reality, as we all know, in a gunfight, a lot of the time your opponent is going to be jumping around, and at the same time, whilst you're getting shot at, this will cause some weapon flinch on your end, which, when all of this is happening within a millisecond or so, a few milliseconds or so, it's often enough to just throw your aim off just a little bit so that you don't get that 2-shot kill burst. And when that happens, and you need to then land a 3rd shot to kill with the R9 goes from being one of the best weapons in time to kill in the game to one of the worst because of its burst delay, which means that if you need to take 3 shots to kill someone, this translates into a time to kill of around 700 milliseconds, which is slower than most of the assault rifles in the game and all the SMGs in the game and even a lot of the LMGs, so if you're up against someone good, you'll just likely get killed. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that the R9 is bad by any means, because with the Dragon's Breath rounds, it's now really fantastic and well-balanced in my opinion, because it rewards you for very good accuracy, but at the same time it heavily punishes you for missing, whereas before Dragon's Breath rounds were added, you had to be nearly point-blank range to get that fast 2-shot kill, which made the risk-reward of it really pointless in my opinion. And this leads me to the next point about why I think a lot of people will still be using the Origin 12 shotgun, because with the Origin 12, even though its effective range in 2-shot kill potential is shorter than the R9, it's still very forgiving if you have to take 3 shots to kill your opponent, as its lack of a burst delay means that on that 3rd shot, your time to kill only goes up to roughly 446 milliseconds, which is still faster than pretty much most of the SMGs in the game. So in my experience, I've found that the Origin 12 is better for people when they're camping inside buildings and defending against rushers, especially if you're trying to stand on the side of a doorway or something like that, where you're going to be really up close and personal with whoever comes in through that door. Because oftentimes, people will run through the door very quickly and unexpectedly, so there's a good chance that if you were using, say, the R9 shotgun, you will miss one or more of your shots, but if you do that with the Origin 12, it's still not the end of the world. You can still kill them really quickly just because of how spammable it is. And as for the R9, I've found that it works best in the opposite scenario, where you're trying to rush into a building with campers in it, because that extra range with the Dragon's Breath rounds just really helps a lot in a more variety of situations, I think, as your opponent could be standing, say, on the stairway of the building, or maybe they're hiding behind a table or something, which is where that extra 2-shot kill range over the Origin 12 helps more, in my opinion, when you're trying to push someone inside a building. So, with all that being said now, I don't think the R9, or really shotguns in general, are overpowered in Warzone. I mean, sure, they are overpowered in close ranges, like within 4 and 8 meters, but they kind of have to be overpowered in those ranges, otherwise they would be pointless to use over an SMG. And as an added point to this, a lot of gunfights in Warzone happen when both teams are kind of stuck out in the open with maybe a few trees or bits of cover in between you. And in those situations, the shotguns are almost useless, whereas if you at least had an SMG as a secondary weapon, as soon as you, say, empty your clip in your assault rifle, you can still quite reliably switch to your SMG and keep the pressure on your opponent, or even kill them, but with a shotgun you just wouldn't be able to do that unless they were right next to you, which is very rare in an open gunfight. And for rushing inside buildings or camping in them, which is what the shotguns are meant to really excel for in Warzone, the SMGs are still very strong weapons for that regard, and it's really because of this versatility in the SMGs that I think guns like the MP5, for example, will still be the meta of close-range guns in Warzone, and to be honest, that's how it should be, I think, because shotguns are meant to be very niche weapons that excel in very close range and nothing else, so in that regard they should be really good for that purpose. And with all that out of the way, let's now talk about the best class setups for both the R9 shotgun and the Origin 12. And there isn't really much room for variety here in these class setups, because pretty much you'll want to only be picking attachments that either extend your damage range, improve your sprint to fire speed, or tighten your hip fire spread, so there's not too much choice in this regard here. So, to start off, with the R9, you'll want to use, of course, the Dragon's Breath rounds, the choke, the sentry barrel, the stippled grip tape, and the 5mm laser. And for the Origin 12, you'll want to use a roughly similar setup where you're using the Impaler barrel, which is the longest barrel, you'll want to use the choke, you'll want to use no stock, you'll want to use 5mm laser, and you'll want to use the 12-round extended mags, but in quads or trios, the 25-round extended mags is also a good option. By the way, guys, on the shotguns, the Merc foregrip doesn't improve your hipfire accuracy, which is why I'm not suggesting it here, and the 1mm laser doesn't improve hipfire either, which is why I opted for the 5mm laser on these setups, even though it reveals your position. But if you don't like the 5mm laser, that's fair enough, it's not for everyone. You could try the 1mm laser if you're using the R9, and you could swap that out for the stippled grip tape if you're using the Origin 12. I do realize that in some of these clips with my Origin 12 setup, I'm using the 1mm laser, and the reason is I filmed these quite a while ago, but if I was to go and redo it, I would have used the 5mm laser instead. And yeah, with all that said and done now, we have come to the end of this video, so I hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button for me, it's very much appreciated. And yeah, thanks and stay safe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.